Okay, time for some more illogic. Last time we went over our Week 6 match against Alphals and his undefeated Newport Noctowls. Please go check out that video first if you've not done so already, so we went over the team builder and battle in which, spoiler alert, the Bouffalant took their second loss of the season, this one only a 1-0 after an incredibly effective Noivern that threatened the entire team, and Jimmy's smart plays that were able to secure the tight victory to keep his Season 10 unbeaten streak intact. This time we're going up against Zach and his Summit County Psyducks. Timestamps will be in the description. Zach's been in the league for a good bit now, and I will definitely remember being his first opponent in his Championship Season 5 VGC season, being quite impressed. He also took us down in Season 6 and finished as the 3rd seed before being victim to an upset in the first round of those playoffs. Since then, though, he has struggled against us and the rest of the league, with me achieving a full gym defense against him in Season 7 with Tapu Fini, destroying him in Week 1 of Season 8 on this channel after a lucky Fishes Rent crit against Quillfish to steal the momentum early in the game, and then 2 victories in Season 9's Multi-Battle League. In Season 10, Zach started an impressive 4-0, matching the Noctowls until they faced off against each other in Week 5. Since then, he has yet to claim a KO, losing 6-0 to Swords Dance's Decidueye, and then 6-0 to the classic Swords Dance Rapid Spin Sandslash on Joey's Akron Aggron, dropping him to the realm of the mortals as one of the 4-4-2 teams, but with a devastating differential. He may be struggling right now, but we cannot let our guard down. This would be a huge win for the Bouffalant if we can pull this off. I do admit I didn't do quite as much prep for this match as I would have liked, but we can still talk about the matchup a good bit, even if I do think it's quite possible we face off again in the playoffs. Zach has got the Boltund at the top, followed by Salazzle, Persian, Rapidash Galar, Leafeon, Duraludon, Claydol, Mantine, Scrafty, Aggron, and Golisopod there at the bottom. No net weaknesses, which is incredibly impressive to pull off, especially considering how fast the team is. It's a real cool balanced team that has a lot of different ways to win in most matchups. Persian will not be one of the ways that he wins here, as despite outspeeding all but Aerodactyl on the team, he really does not want to invite Arrow in at all. Steelix walls it unless it's Water Pulse, which is Water Pulse, and if he's that set, it is significantly weaker, and it is much easier to bait most everything else on the team. U-turning around's a bit annoying, but that's it. Aggron isn't great here either. Again, Steelix puts in massive work, and the amount of answers I have to hit it super effectively, or even just chip it out of sturdy range, is too much for him to be able to handle. From here, I find it a little bit tough, but I'd say I'm not overly concerned about Claydol. It's his electric immunity, so it very well may come, but I can say firsthand from prepping with it in Season 8 that it just isn't that good. It's more impressive than good, with lots of unique aspects like Rocks and Rapid Spin, Great Stabs, Trick Room, Edgequake Resistance, but without recovery or that extra oomph behind its moves or the ability to come in on anything that has a bit of coverage, it gets worn away easily and it becomes setup bait instead. I'll go Rapidash next, even if I've been shown to favor some toxic strats and am mostly slower than it, not to mention multiple sweeping attempts with it, including one success. I'm not the most concerned about it. I know a few ways to stop it that I'll already be packing on the team, so my concern for it drops. Finally, and this may seem odd as a 100-point pick that also outspeeds all but Arrow, but Salazzle doesn't actually do great here. That sub-toxic strat isn't something that works against players like me too well, especially with all the weird stuff I tend to break out, and a spec set can easily be taken advantage of. Arrow outspeeding it, resisting both stabs, and destroying it with Edgequake, plus the multi-hit move of Dual Wing Beat to break sub is pretty awful for it, not to mention other potentially sneaky answers I have for it. So for his top 6, I kind of expect to come Leafeon is a weird mon, very little aside from grass offense, but with my 2 resists being so low tier, it's actually relatively safe in spam balls, allowing Arrow in, of course, but it can also prevent Arrow from setting up too, with the potential for crit Leaf Blades. My switch-ins are limited to it, which is a theme for some of these big threats. Boltund is also a little tough to swap into, as Electric on Fire is tough, not to mention things like Play Rough or Crunch to potentially ruin my checks to it, or Volt Switch to outplay me and keep up momentum, combined with that ridiculous speed stat. Scrafty may not be immediately obvious as a bring, but really does do well here. Fighting is not the best matchup for me, and one of my big fighting resists in Mesprit gets clocked by knockoff, not to mention those toxic strats aren't as feasible against a Rest Shedskin Scrafty, or my physical offense can be neutered by Intimidator Bulk Up, or max special defense investment makes it very tough to break, and I don't have a fairy type either. It's a bit of a problem. Shout out to Season 4 where we got to use Scrafty a few times there too, including a little bit of a mini sweep in one of those weeks. Speaking of from past mons, Mantine is awesome. Great mon. Zach partially attributed his pickup of the Stingray to our use of it in Season 6. It's naturally so specially bulky, some physical investment to go with that and access to Roost, plus Defog and Scald finish an amazing wall. Duraludon is super scary too. Dragon Stab is very tough to resist when backed up by coverage like Stab, Flash Cannon, Thunderbolt, as well as Body Press. It can become about impossible to wall, especially with the lower power levels overall in the tier. Even Resist can get absolutely chucked by it. Not looking forward to having to deal with this. Finally, we've got Golisopod. This thing hits so hard. First impression with stab and all that base power chunks, everything is absolutely free if you can get it in against, say, Mesprit. And my resist to first impression really don't do much of anything back to him either, or our weak to liquidation, our Aqua Jet. If I give him free turns, he's also liable to set up spikes too, or maybe it could be an AV set, or play around with the emergency exit. Great mon. So for me, a Marowak won't work here. Two scary water types, Duraludon nuking me, Leafeon nuking me, just the easy ability to get chunked by just about everything is really rough for it. Similarly, Clang is just left behind. While charging the Mantine or Golisopod would actually be super funny, but being walled by Duraludon and Boltund and Scrafty and Salazzle is not the place I want to be in. Frostlass also kind of blows here. Even with Ice being a relatively good offensive type against him, I struggle to actually break anything with Frostlass. Mantine can also come in freely on it to defog spikes away. Duraludon ignores most of my moves. Boltund Crunch is free. I struggle to do anything to Golisopod. I just can't do much of anything here with it. Clawitzer also does not like the big bulky water resists, which the top 3 mons I'm afraid of all are. So it doesn't break Mantine. Golisopod, you get a move or two off pretty easily, especially with an AV. Duraludon outspeeds before I can Aura-Sphere. Leafeon destroys me, and if Salazzle is the only thing I beat, I'll have to pass. Finally, Guzzlord is probably my best water and grass resist together, but I can't do it. Weak to first impression, Duraludon's dragon moves without him being able to hit back, and cannot Katua KO Mantine with just about anything, weak to Scrafty's fighting moves, weak to play rough Boltund, Dragon Pulse Salazzle, play rough Rapidash. It's too much for Guzzlord, who will wait to terrorize someone else another week. That's all just as well as we get a kind of interesting look at the team at this stage. Early in the season, we toyed with Clawitzer a lot, used Guzzlord as an answer for a couple of top picks against great coaches, even got to bring Marowak twice, and the Clang for fun. This time, as I didn't put in the most time, effort, and thought into it, I kind of like the idea of just bring my top 6 best mons. I think I mentioned this in the original draft analysis, that your top 6 mons are something you've got to be comfortable with just bringing whenever. You don't want to have to rely on mons that just aren't as good. Here's hoping sheer point value can win today, so we'll start with the Aerodactyl again, the only team member to come every week so far. We've got a cute little Hone Claws set this time, as with speed for Boltund, we already outspeed all but Scarfs. If we can find the Scarf and get the appropriate checks like Ladle or Duraludon a little low, we will be OHKOing basically everything with the appropriate move at +1, all the better because of the accuracy boost we've given to Stone Edge and Dual Wing Beat with the Hone Claws. Stone Edge may become the better play against something like Boltund even, who could be carrying a Shuckle Berry, and we can get away with something that isn't super effective if we just have that Hone Claws boost up. These options become available and should show the power of Hone Claws, plus great mixed coverage against him. I'll take a very physically defensive Claydol, plus some low rolls to not 2-hit KO everything he has at +1, while again outspeeding everything. It's just a great mon in the matchup, as well as most matchups, actually, admittedly. Let's move on then to the other 100 in Tentacruel, pretty standard overall, which may be a little odd for me, actually. Rapid Spin for Rock against no Ghost type on his team, Scald for consistent damage and a potential burn, Black Sludge for recovery. The rest is about the most specialized the team has, with Sludge Bomb and 8 EVs to guarantee the OHKO on no HP Leafeon, while the Timid Nature and 216 speed EVs ensure that we outspeed it. I like the idea of having the offensive option against it, and I'd like to be able to play Tentacruel a little aggressively here too. That said, I cannot touch Mantine at all, so Toxic in the last slot is for that. I'm a little bit concerned this may be bait for Duraludon, but if I can come in on something like a Draco Meteor, or if he's locked into Flash Cannon, I'd actually feel pretty content to just kind of fire off Scalds and at least try to snag a burn or some residual chip on it. I actually feel pretty good about this set overall. Next is a set I'm a little bit less comfortable with, and that's going to be Steelix, but it is such a good mon, has been such a good mon for me all season. Stealth Rock 3 attacks, the stabs plus honorary stab body press to hit everything but his water types incredibly hard, including ground for Boltund and Duraludon, fighting for Scrafty and Duraludon, and Heavy Slam for the Rapidash. I figured I at least wanted Steelix to beat the things it's supposed to be able to beat, and for the most part, those are the physical attackers, so max physical bulk to also boost up that body press. It would have been nice to be able to make room for something for the water types, but I was unimpressed with Head Smash calcs, so Stealth Rock is just as good, if not better, and I didn't really want to drop anything to Toxic the Mantine or Golisopod either. I'll rely on the rest of the team to wear them down, as well as some extra coverage from my Assault Vest Mesprit. Yeah, I wasn't 100% sure on what to do with Mesprit this week, so I went with max HP, max special attack, and lots of cool coverage options. Psychic is the strong stab that hits Salazzle, of course, but Dazzling Gleam does at least 70% to even max Spadef Scrafty, which then only does a bit more than half with Knock, and doesn't reduce our damage output at all either with that, as well as about half of damage to no investment Duraludon with that D-Gleam as well. Plus, that Thunderbolt does well over half to both Mantine and Golisopod. Those coverage options seemed super strong and was the main idea of the set, along with what could be a slow U-turn out while tanking a special move thanks to the vest. I especially see that coming in handy against something like potentially a Duraludon. Colbur was kind of neat too, but I like the idea of having another soft Duraludon check or taking a Specs Fire move from Salazzle better, or things like that. Still looking for a great performance from Mesprit, this could be it. Next, we've got the always solid Passimian back with a Scarf yet again. Like how Mesprit was able to go modest, I'm happy that we can go Adamant Passimian here too while still outspeeding the Boltund. Should make for some easy chip against literally anything we're up against. Very standard set overall. Close combat smacks basically everything, especially with no ghost types to worry about. Knockoff, of course, is spammable if it would get a KO to chip items. U-turn for easy momentum, especially if it's KOs. And Rock Slide hits the water types that resist fighting for at least a good chunk, especially if we can predict something like a Mantine Defog, or can get into Gliscod by resisting the first impression. Straightforward, pretty easy. We'll move on to the last team member, and that's going to be Rotom-Frost, and that's also going to be another Scarf. I really don't have much for his high speed tiers, so 2 Scarfs allows me to grab the 3 fastest mons in the match, barring another Scarf from him, which I think we can take advantage of more easily than he can. Additionally, we are able to go modest again here, so the damage output we get while outspeeding his whole team is just amazing, meaning we're not missing out on chunking the slower, fatter parts of his team. The moveset is straightforward. The notable thing here is going to be Trick, which I've included in the past as something that's a bit awkward, but this time should have much more use. In particular, without Claydol, Volt Switch is totally free, but if we trick the Scarf onto the Claydol, it becomes way more free at the cost of losing one of my Scarfs. Another reason I would like to have this having 2 this time is just the ability to potentially predict Mantine coming in on a Blizzard and tricking a Scarf there. I know Scrafty doesn't want a Scarf either, especially if it isn't D-Dance, and even more so if it's that rest set that could be very tough to break otherwise. So I can afford to have 2 Scarfs this time, I think, because I can look to be tricking one of them away a little more freely. So nothing too tricky or fancy this time, but the beauty of the team that Bouffalant drafted is how versatile it is in its simplicity. Hopefully that makes the slightest bit of sense and didn't come off as too pretentious or anything. Let's just hop into the game. I was actually right about no Salazzle, but we do see Claydol here over Leafeon. I'm good with that for sure. Just whittle down the Claydol and Aerodactyl should still be able to go in. Seems like it would make sense for me to lead a Scarf. I'll choose to go Rotom to start, since I'd like to keep the Passimian Scarf a secret. That way if I trick Rotom's Scarf away, I'll still have a surprise outspeed later. Good luck to Zach and his Psyducks. And he's going to have the Claydol lead. That actually makes a good bit of sense, I think. I wouldn't appreciate the Rocks lead, and he has to respect, though, that I outspeed and can click Blizzard. But he's got to be able to at least survive one hit of that. Still, I don't want to be swapping directly in a Tentacruel here either. Do I fire off the trick right away? His best Blizzard resists, don't want to take an electric move. I don't know what his best play is here. I'm going to trick, just in case he stays in. Neutering the Claydol early sounds amazing, but he actually has Protect and goes for it turn 1, which is very interesting. I like it. I like that quite a bit, actually. If I had been sub-Nasty Plot from week 3, we'd be in business, but as it is, he sees our trick play. He may know that we're Scarfed now. I don't mind switching out now that we've been had into... Well, what is he going for? I would think Rocks if he stays in, but it's unlikely he stays in. If he's worried about a Scarf, something offensive potentially, Boltund, Duraludon, if it's one of those, I think I could outspeed and chunk with the Passimian. So we're going to go out into that, and we do indeed see the double out into Boltund as well. Well, close combat does actually KO Boltund from full, funnily enough. That's the power of that adamant nature. But I don't see him letting that happen. We've got the momentum on our side if he doubles, and if he doesn't, U-turn will do about half to Boltund. So I think that's what we're going to do. Ooh, he outspeeds me. Quick double check shows, yes, he is in fact Scarf. Later learning it's a naive nature, so as not to lower the power of Volt Switch. Mantine seems very correct, as U-turn will get us out into the, well, Rotom is super obvious, right? But what are we going to do with that? Volt Switch? He's onto that Scarf, I know it. Is there another play? It's too early for Arrow, way too early, especially as we know about where the Scarf is on a squad now, too. Mesprit, maybe? Mesprit, baby. Even better, he might not actually know what it is I'm planning on doing with this mon, considering I can do just about anything. That fact is going to be made abundantly clear. He makes the worst switch he could have possibly made by going out into Gliscod, another electric weakness, and takes 62%, immediately forcing out the emergency exit and rendering it unable to do much of anything. That's awesome. No first impression next turn. It's going to be low when it comes back in next. Sweet. Thinking back, it really does seem like I was showing my hand a bit with the electric move, purposefully swapping it in on the slow pivot into Mantine without access to any other super effective move, but boy, am I glad he didn't end up swapping into Bolt Thunder, Duraludon. This was definitely a best case scenario here. This is a huge turn. Wonder if he was expecting rocks or something interesting like that, or if he was just trying to get the bug move in there ASAP. And it's actually going to get even better here because on the emergency exit, he goes right into Scrafty. Better, you ask? What's so good about him swapping in his dark type? Oh, he's 4 times weak to Fairymon. Dazzling Gleam away. 70% indicates this is a very specially bulky, which means the incoming knock, yep, only 54%. That plus the lefty's recovery at the end there and the lack of Intimidate indicates this is probably the Shedskin rest set with Bulk Up. Not a big fan of that, I have to say. I would love to just get another free hit off with Dazzling Gleam. His answer is going to be the Claydol. Fair choice considering the immunity to Thunderbolt, resistance of Stab, and his neutrality to Fairy. It doesn't look like that did too much damage either, and even less because of leftovers, and of course, there could be Protect coming too. But this is actually a physically defensive Claydol. That damage is consistent with max HP, no special defense. That makes sense. I figured it may be an Arrow check, and I'm not running Crunch or Aqua Tail. Well, honestly, I just want to get chip off on this thing as much as possible. And again, if it's down low enough for Arrow, we're going to be in business. Especially if we can just catch that Bolton somehow. Sitting in here and clicking Dazzling Gleam doesn't really appear to be the answer. It's looking somewhere around a 5-hit KO. So instead, I think we're just going to U-turn out to do as much damage as before. But this time we're going to bring in... what do we bring in? The super effective options are actually a little bit limited for me. I didn't really expect it to come or be an issue, which it still isn't at this point. But you know why I didn't worry about it? Because if it comes, we'll still find a way to beat it. I'm confident in Claydol's ability to let everyone down. He isn't going for a Psychic move this turn. I've got Mesprit in. So maybe we can help that bait that a little bit with Pissimian. I like that. We've got coverage for him too. Cosmic Power. Interesting. Plus defenses does make it a little annoying to hit hard, not to mention stored power increasing in power too. Well, the notorious weakness of Claydol, one of them at least, is going to be its lack of recovery, so I'm really liking the idea of getting rid of those leftovers it's been holding on to. Knockoff is still going to do a decent bit to Fizdef plus 1 Claydol. Of course, lefties for a turn, but that health bar is going to be staying right there at the end of the turn, while in return stored power... that isn't even doing all that much. You'll love to see it. You love to see it. That's the result of seeing damage calcs too. Definitely appreciate seeing where the investment was at. If we can force this thing out, we could potentially set up in front of it with Arrow, but otherwise I'll just need to get off some strong, generally neutral moves. I'm currently locked in Knock with the Scarf actually, so I'm going to hard switch out into the Mesprit, who already resists the telegraphed stored power, even without the Assault Vest. I don't actually have anything to hit Claydol with, as he has seen almost my entire moveset, but even without knowing that last move in Claydol, I don't mind just sitting in front of it and spamming Dazzling until it goes down. Even better, after one more turn of Protect, as it's trying to scout out what I'm trying to do, even better, the Duraludon's going to come in, and we're just going to chip everything into range of Arrow here, especially when we do about half of it. That's an awesome damage, 56, that indicates very little bulk. Definitely no Assault Vest here. This is going excellently. That would be a little more excellent if I either outsped Duraludon or still had my Assault Vest. Instead, we're going to have to take a hit with something. I don't see Body Press coming, so actually Steelix is probably going to be the one that makes the most sense here. Even without special bulk, the incoming Draco meter is going to do less than half. Oh jeez, that's actually quite a bit of damage. Looks like a pretty standard amount from Duraludon, and knowing he's going to have to switch, being at -1 and threatened with a KO, it's the perfect time, I think, to start setting up a little something ourselves. We're going to put those rocks right up. And Mantine, though, is the only customer I really didn't want to see. I only have a couple of options here, of course. Mesprit and Rotom providing the electric coverage I'm looking for. I'm a little worried about Defog, of course. Mantine coming in on the rocks, but also Scald. I also want to get myself into a good position moving forward. So what if we went a little tricksy? Volt Switch isn't free. I'm aware of the existence of Claydol, but its existence is about all it's going for right now. I think I'm good with going directly into Rotom to threaten this out. And if he does go into Claydol, I can switch into, honestly, whatever. The chance to hit Mantine is too good, though, so I'm just going to go right into Rotom here. Confuse Ray? That one? Okay. Wonder what the purpose of this would be. Actually, then maybe I don't have to Volt Switch. Maybe I can go into another Coolmon that can whittle this down another way, while also beating Claydol. We're going to double out into the Tentacruel. And yep, there's the Claydol, ready for me to force it out again. And for bonus, we're also going to be able to try to keep our rocks here as well. This could be a spinner, potentially, but... well, actually, I don't want it to spin. And if he goes on a Mantine, we'll lay down the Toxic, because he doesn't have the ability to touch us, aside from Confusion, apparently. Maybe that's it. Scald away, and the conversation there won't matter because Claydol just goes down, giving a rare KO to Tentacruel, and the first KO of the match to put us up 6-5. We've got Rocks up. Mesprit is itemless and at half, with Passimian also at about half, a little less than that, and Steelix at about 2/3. But he's got Duraludon at half, plus Golisopod below half, and we know about the Scarf on Boltund. He also has a Scrafty at 30%, but considering that his play is going to be bringing it in right now, I have a feeling it's not going to be staying at that level for very long. I could try to get the jump on it by swapping out, but just in case he is looking to knock off, I think I do need to just play the safe play and stay in and Scald a pitiful 15%. We get the burn, but he sure is going to rest. I was a little afraid of that. Shed Skin thankfully does not activate either of those, so we at least have one turn here. The current plan is to force it down with strong moves, and just in case it wakes up next turn, I think I'm going to go into the Rotom-Frost, but it does actually, at the end of the turn, stay asleep. And we got a new plan formulating here. Yeah, we already see here, what do I need the Scarf on Rotom for? What am I outspeeding, the Duraludon? That's it. There's no Salazzle, there's no Leafeon, Boltund is Scarfed. The best way to beat a setup Mon is to trick the Scarf onto him. He takes his second turn of sleep. No bulk up for you. These are amazing. This is actually pretty amazing. And we'll take those lefty twos. Really great play here to stop any shenanigans in their tracks. Of course, we got easy plays after here too. Now that we're not locked in either. So Shed Skin does work. Obviously, that was his second turn of rest, so it didn't matter at all. But the Volt Switch is incredibly easy. But what do I go into? I do actually outspeed the +1 Scrafty, funnily enough, but now what? Fighting is super effective coverage onto me, but Knockoff seems pretty free and a little more spammable too, as well as a nice answer to the Mesprit that is threatening with fairy coverage. The middle ground play, the one which I actually don't go down to either, is going to be Passimian, who actually does tank the knock, even if I have lost both Scarfs in consecutive turns. 4% isn't much, but it's enough. It's actually kind of crazy to think that Passimian tanked a Volt Switch, a Stored Power, and a Knockoff with minimal bulk investment because we went Adamant. But for now, we've just got to take care of the issues in front of us. Close Combat definitely KOs this, as well as the Duraludon or Boltund that could try and take advantage of my lowered speed. And even if Mantine comes in, which of course it will, it's got a difficult choice to make. The way I see it, he can either Roost, Defog, or Scald. Scald is obviously not so great. It's going to KO me, but I could get a ton of damage off before going down. Roost is super annoying too, since Rock Slide actually doesn't quite do half to Mantine, so unless I get a flinch while hitting my slides, he's going to outstall me. Defog gets rid of the rocks, which is crucial for him, but also leaves him open to Passimian staying in, claiming a KO. So what should I do? Defog means I need to stay in, especially with a very funny Defiant boost, while Roost would lead me to go to Rotom, and Scald to Rotom as well, or maybe the Tentacruel. Though if I stay in, it isn't that bad. Actually, what do I need Passimian for at this point? Close combating the Scrafty? It's already locked in, that's not too big of a concern. I get outsped by two others, and Golisopod, his first impression, I'm still taking 4% from that. I'm just staying in. Maybe I'll get lucky with a flinch or something. We're just going to Rock Slide away. Connect. No flinch, but Defog. Perfect. I am definitely claiming a KO when I'm Adamant in +2. Pick a sack to the knockoff. Woo, easy. Of course, Scrafty's the only thing that could survive a knock. Okay, so good news. Mantine is low, and it's pressured by all but the Steelix and the Tentacruel. The bad news is, Scrafty just lost the one thing that's keeping it in check. Here's hoping he's just going to sack the Scrafty, because otherwise this get very annoying. Okay, close combat KOs the Scrafty. That'll make it to 6-4. With that down too, I've pretty much lost all my reasons to keep Passimian around, so even though I think about it a bit, the first impression from Golisopod will claim the life of my monkey 5-4. That's not a problem at all. Passimian did everything we needed to do. Rotom is, of course, an easy switch here. I'm sure you remember how free Volt Switch is right now, especially if we can chip the Boltund into a range of a neutral move. He does swap into Duraludon, who tanks it a little bit better than I would have liked. And between Aerodactyl or Steelix, I decided to go with the safer option of Steelix to better tackle the next turn defensively and get some more leftovers recovery. I kind of figured even if I could grab an Aero KO, Boltund revenges pretty easily, and hopefully Steelix should do enough to the others if they come in, because this and Boltund are about the only uses remaining for Steelix. He is actually on this turn going to get the rocks up. It's not the best, but Body Press will take out the building 5-3 as Mantine comes in very quickly from Zach. That is definitely a Roost, and he outspeeds me too. That's not too big of a problem. We're just going to go straight into Rotom, take rocks, that's fine. and Roost. And we actually get a little bit of leftovers recovery too, which is kind of funny. Of course, with Rotom in, it's time to Volt Switch again. It's so free sometimes, you know? Even more so when he's running low on resources and thinking about what he needs to save or keep in the back for Aerodactyl, so Mantine will just go down to the electric move 5-2 as Tentacruel comes in, as, of course, in comes the Boltund. And you already know we're just going to clear the way for some endgame switching. Crunch does a decent amount of damage as a neutral option while Rapid Spin removes the rocks. Crunch is decently strong, and I don't have a resist right now, so I'll just go into my physically defensive Steelix to tank that pretty easily. I got a little cheeky here. I know I really can't touch Golisopod with Steelix, so I double into the Rotom, who tanks a crit from Crunch. No, thank you. I'll just go back into Steelix on the other one. I see that Zach doesn't feel like playing around much anymore, so I'll oblige. We're just going to set up Stealth Rocks of my own in order to chunk the Bug type whenever it comes back in. And then, of course, an Earthquake to get Steelix another KO here on the Boltund. Even with my defense, it's not too big of an issue, because with Golisopod coming in onto rocks and very low, I can just swap out into something that resists both of its stabs and Tentacruel. And we're just going to be able to finish things off because we outspeed it and hit it with a hard Sludge Bomb, and that will wrap up the clean 5-0 victory for the Buffalo Bouffalant. GG to Zach. I know neither of us had too much time to prep, but you definitely had less considering a successful appearance at a much bigger Pokemon event than the WCL Season 10, Week 7. This is a well-balanced game from your Bouffalant. Aerodactyl once again forcing all kinds of prep between Scarf Boltund and the physically defensive Mantine and Claydol among others. Even without appearing, its presence was felt. My favorite part of Aerodactyl thus far this season for sure. Steelix was always tanking Draco Meteor and a few crunches, only to destroy Duraludon and Boltund right back. Tentacruel got a couple nice KOs too, Scald and Sludge Bomb, that's really cool, while clearing rocks to make the endgame a little bit easier, very nice. Mesprit put a ton of pressure onto Zach. T-Bolt for Mantine and Dazzling Gleam chunking both Scrafty and Duraludon was vital. Really nice set. It's always glad to see how customizable this Mon is. Rotom's Volt Switch as being free was great, as the clutch trick onto Rest Scrafty was as well. Great success, but I think Passimian probably deserves an MVP somewhere in here, taking a ton of hits, pivoting around so well, removing Claydol's lefties while chunking it, and messing around with the Scrafty and Mantine in the mid-game. My only KO'd Mon also set the tone for the rest of the team, so in a well-balanced game, I think Passimian deserves it. That'll do it this time. That brings up the Bouffalant up to 5-2 with a plus 18 differential, bringing us super close to clinching a first round bye. Just a couple KOs in our Week 8 match against Chad CL. Steamrollers should do it, and spoiler alert, I do get those. Yeah, with our positions very close to locked up, we just had more of a casual battle I'll talk about a little bit more in the beginning of the next video, which is playoffs. In the end, though, we secured the number 3 seed with a 6-2 record plus 19 differential. The two teams ahead of us we faced off against in the regular season, the Wobbuffets at 2 and the Noctowls at 1, and they finished 7-1 and 6-2 respectively. And we finished against them 1-1 plus 0, meaning we're probably right where we belong. This gives us a first round bye and a quarterfinals matchup against the second highest remaining seed. I've avoided talking about the Steamrollers matchup a little bit here because, barring a huge upset somewhere, we are scheduled to play our familiar foe Chad in that quarterfinals matchup. He defeated us the last time we squared off in the quarterfinals in Season 7, as well as the Season 8 semifinals. So having to face him again like this, even with a better record than him this time, is very frightening. Playoffs are coming up next. We'll see you then.